Just checking this JCB digger over and found the hydraulic ram that works the dozer blade has got a bend in it. There's a bend in the shaft here. You can see this knuckle joint is bent over that way a bit. I've just taken it off and I'm going to try and straighten it. I've got the hydraulic pipes plugged. I made a couple of brass plugs for that. I've blanked these ports off with 2 plugs. So I have made a jig to hold this whilst I straighten it. That's the jig I've made. So the ram will be fitted into here. I've still got to weld this plate on yet. I want to make sure I get that distance a good fit for the knuckle on this ram. And then with a hydraulic jack, I'll have a jack on there. The ram will be clamped in there at one end and then lift it up with the jack on the other end. Try and straighten it. Just getting this top plate welded on. I've got that set right distance to clamp this knuckle. And now I've got this ram in the workshop in a better light. I found that there's a crack in the shaft. That's the way it's bent. See, it's bent over to the left there. And you can see a crack on the edge of that weld. It might go and crack this side when I pull it back. But that crack there will close up. So I think what I might do is, when it's straight, I might V it out, grind into the metal and V it out all the way around and TIG weld it. I'll have to extend the ram fully and keep it cool at this end whilst I'm welding it. Got the ram bolted into the jig. Now I'll try and straighten it. You can see how much the ram is bent. This crack here will close, but it might crack on the bottom. It looks like it's straight. If anything, I've got it slightly up the other way now, but it'll spring back down. And that crack has closed up. And I don't think it's cracked on the underside. I've taken the weight off the jack. It's sprung down a bit. So this is 8mm higher than it was. think I'll take the ram out of the jig and just line it up. Just check this with straight edge. We're sitting flat on that V block. It's not quite straight yet. So I'll have to give it a bit more. I got the ram straight, but it did crack on the other side. So I'm going to V it out all round and TIG weld it. I've taken the knuckle joint off the ram altogether where it was cracked, and I V'd it out ready for welding. I've also got it mounted into a bit of a jig to line it up. Got a piece of angle iron down each side, bolted through with some spacers, and that's all squared up. There's only a short stroke on this ram, and this rod is almost fully extended. So to keep it cool, I've clipped a metal strip around the top of the ram here. And whilst I'm welding with this little pipe, I'll be trickling water into there to keep the rod cool and to stop any steam rising and interfering with the argon on my welding torch. I've got an aluminium disc which I'll drop down there. I've got that welded. I've still got the water trickling in. That kept it cool at the bottom. I've also got some copper grease around the seal there. Had the earth clamp connected at the top. I tack welded a thin rod here to rest my hand on. Just made it easier. So we'll leave that in there to cool down. That's cooled down. The turntable wasn't steady enough, so I didn't use it. I bolted it onto an old brake disc. That's the ram out of the jig. Before I put it back on the digger, I'll put some new bushes in the ends. Taken the bushes out of the ram. There's one of these goes in from each side, so there's two in this end, two in the other end. I made this drift to press them out with, so I put that drift in there, push the bush straight through into that spacer tube with this 20mm bolt. I had some trouble getting the bushes out of the top end. There's a shoulder in the middle, so I had to push them onto the shoulder, or half over the shoulder, and then tap them back out the other way. New bushes to go in. It's a steel, plated steel outer shell with a PTFE lining. Also got the ram painted, 2 coats of red oxide and 2 coats of black paint on top. Now I'll get the new bushes pressed in. Fit in the new bushes, just tapping them in with this drift. That's the same drift I used to get the old ones out. Just tap it in with this soft hammer. New bushes are fitted. Put 2 new grist nipples in. Now I want to get the air out of the ram, fill it with oil before I fit it back on the digger. I've got all the air out of the ram and full of hydraulic oil. I did that by using this stainless steel container with hydraulic oil in it. 2 flexible pipes, double acting ram, and I work the ram by hand, pushing it in and out, and at the same time making sure whichever end I was getting the air out of, the pipe was at the highest point. So when I did got the air out of this section, that pipe would be there, and I'd work the ram by hand. So as it was pushing air out of this pipe, it would be pulling oil in the other one. And then I'd turn it round the other way and tilt the ram up so this was at the high end, to get the air out of this. So as the air was travelling up one pipe, oil would be coming down the other pipe. So all the air is out. It's full of hydraulic oil. Got it capped off. Fitting the ram on the digger. I've got that end in place. I am fitting the hydraulic hoses, taking the caps off, I had a cap plug on the pipes as well. I made those out of brass. That's the plug that was on the pipe. The end of the pipe inside that nut has a 45-degree angle on it and an O-ring set into a groove to make the seal. Even though I've taken the cap off, it's full of oil, but it's not running out. That's the ram in place, all connected up. Now I need to fit the dozer blade back on. While the dozer blade was off, I've done a bit of work to it. I welded a new strip along the bottom there. Welded two side pieces on as well. This dozer blade had an odd pivot pin in one of these pivots, and I think somewhere along the line one of the pins has dropped out, and that's probably what caused the ram to bend. Also, the bottom of this blade was worn on one side more than the other, so I cut it off straight and welded that strip on. Also put these grease nipples on. There wasn't a place for grease nipples before for some reason, so I drilled a 3mm hole straight through into the centre here, then welded a little threaded socket on the outside to screw the grease nipple into. That's the dozer blade fitted, ram all connected up. These are the extra grease nipples I fitted. That one and one on the other side. Got all the pivots greased up. I also put a strip on the bottom of these dozer blade extensions, so that just clips on there like that. The pin goes through to hold them in place. So that's that job finished.